camera. Okay, everybody see it? Can you see that, guys?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just trying to make it straight here with my camera. Goes that way. There we go. Okay. So a pizza store charges a price for a medium cheese pizza plus an additional cost per topping. The equation that relates the total cost C to the number of toppings N is, and then it gives you this equation. Okay. So you have to know that the number in front of the variable, so this number 1.5 represents M, and then the plain number on its own represents B, okay? Because it always follows that pattern, y equals mx plus b. So the first question says, what is the cost of a plain medium cheese pizza? So notice that it doesn't ask you for the initial value or the rate of change. It kind of disguises what it's asking for. So what is the cost of a plain medium cheese pizza? So a pizza store charges a price for a medium cheese pizza plus an additional cost per topping. So this medium cheese pizza, when you're reading through the question, must be your initial value. And then plus an additional cost per topping. So when you see cost per topping, you're thinking rate of change. So when it says, what is the cost of a plain medium cheese pizza, they're really asking for the initial value. You have to figure that out. And we said our initial value is $8. So the cost of a medium plain cheese pizza would be $8, our initial value. And then when you see per, we know that that's relating to our rate of change. So what is the cost per topping? So M is the number in front of the variable, so it's 1.5, but that doesn't, 1.5, that number doesn't make sense as a cost per topping. You've got to make it into a cost. So we put a dollar sign, and then $1.5 doesn't make sense. It's $1.50 per topping. So there's our cost per topping. And then what is the cost of a medium pizza with 4 extra toppings? So in this case, they gave us the formula for the equation, and they're giving us the number of toppings. So they're giving us N equals 4 and asking us what C is. What's the cost of a pizza with 4 extra toppings? So we can just use our formula and sub in 4 for N. So type that in, 1.5 times 4 plus 8 is 14. And then make sure we answer the question, what is the cost? So therefore it costs $14 for a 4-topping pizza. Okay, so this time we were given the equation. And that's kind of how this lesson is. We're trying to pick out pieces of information, either just given wording and numbers or given the equation and some words to help us. All right, our next example is another EQAO question. Marissa withdraws the same amount from her bank account each week. So withdraws means takes out the same amount from her bank account each week. And the same amount shows us a constant rate, okay? The equation A equals 1,550 minus 90W represents the relationship between the amount of money remaining in her account A in dollars and the number of weeks of withdrawing W. So again, for this one, I feel like a sketch would be helpful. Instead of having Y on my vertical axis, I have the amount in the account. And instead of having X on my horizontal, I have the number of weeks, W. And I know I'm starting off with a certain amount, but I'm withdrawing money, I'm taking it out. So the amount in my account is decreasing. So there should be a negative slope. So that picture helps me understand what's going on. I'm starting off with a certain amount and then decreasing that amount as the weeks go on. So the rate of change, including units. So the rate of change is the number in front of the variable on the right side. So in our case, the rate of change is going to be the negative 90, the number in front of the variable. But we have no units so far. So we'd get like, if this was EQAO, we'd probably get a level 2 for that, but we want to get a level 4, so we have to include units as well. And remember, our way of doing the units was figuring out was always Y per X. So what is our vertical axis? What units is A in? It's dollars. So dollars per, and then W stands for number of weeks. Put weeks down here. So dollars per week. So there's our rate of change. Then we get a level 4. And what's the meaning of that rate of change? Marissa withdraws $90 each week. So once you've got units on, it's easier to write down the meaning. And our word withdraws is what's accounting for the negative sign. Okay, you could do takes out, takes $90 out of the account each week would also be a good statement. But it has to show that you understand why it's negative. Initial value, so we know on our graph that's going to be what we started at, and we know that in our equation it's the number that's not with a variable. So it's going to be 1,550, but we need units, and we know that the units for the vertical axis is dollars. So the meaning of the initial value is Marissa starts with $1,550 in her account. So again, this is another EQAO question where they tried to confuse people by putting it in a different order than Y equals MX plus B. They put it in the form Y equals B plus MX. It's still the same, they just reverse the order. So they put the initial value first, and then the rate of change in the variable second. So watch for that, they're tricky. And make sure you know when you're given the equation where you locate the rate of change and where you locate the initial value. So our last question in this example is, if Marissa has $470 remaining in her account, how many weeks has it been? So first we're going to write out the equation they give us. And then they're going to give us one of the values, either A or W. So this one says if Marissa has $470 remaining in her account, that's the amount in her account. So that's A they're giving us. And they're asking us to find W, how many weeks it's been. So this time, this is the first time they've given us A in this lesson. We've done it before in other lessons. That's where you're going to arrow down and replace A with 470. And then we want to use reverse BEDMAS solving equations to get W by itself. W is over here. So be careful with this one. I'm just going to put a little star here because first of all, we've got a negative 90 in front of our W term and it's not in the order we're used to. So I want to create a zero pair with 1550. If I'm not sure whether to add or subtract it because this negative sign is confusing me, I can try subtracting and then do 1550 minus 1550 on my calculator, and it does give me 0. So I also have to do it on this side of the equal sign. Even though it gives me a negative number, that can make people uncomfortable, but it's okay because there's also a negative number in front of the W term. So we're going to do 470 minus 1,550, and that gives us negative $1,080. Okay, and then I call this a sneaky negative because often people just write down the 90W and they forget about the negative sign, but don't forget it. So right now W is being multiplied by negative 90. And we want to undo that, so we're going to divide both sides by negative 90. So negative 1,080 divided by negative 90 is 12. So that means, therefore, it has been 12 weeks. So it was okay to get this negative here because we were dividing by a negative, and a negative divided by negative gives you a positive. So when this one was on EQAO, it was actually a little bit better done because people tend to just have a understanding of money in general. So a lot of people were able to realize that the 1550 is the amount she started with, and that the negative 90 was the amount she was spending. The most common error was to make the 90 positive and write $90 per week. So make sure it's the number in front of the variable, including the sign, when you're thinking about what the rate of change is. Okay, example 7. I just clipped it right from EQAO. It's a multiple choice question. So the equation C equals 15n plus 100 represents the relationship between the total cost of a gym membership, C in dollars. So I'd probably be thinking to myself, this is C and this is N, because this is like Y and that's like X. In dollars, and the number of months of membership N. Which statement about this gym membership is true? I would also be thinking to myself, before I go and read my answers, the B value is 100. So I'm going to start at 100. And my rate of change is 15. It's positive, so I'm going to be going upward. Okay. And then I just kind of have this in my mind as I'm reading through and deciding which statement is true. It has an initial cost of $15. Well, we already figured out the initial cost was 100, so that's not our answer. Okay. It costs $115 per month. Per means rate of change. Okay. So we already pre-figured out that our rate of change was going to be $15 per month, not $115. You can see where they're trying to see whether you understand it, because if someone added the 100 and the 15, that's how much it costs if you only go 1 month. So it is kind of tricky, but that's not our answer because we know it costs $15 per month. C, it has an initial cost of $15. No, right away we know that's wrong because we know our initial cost is $100. So we're really relying that D has to make sense. It has an initial cost of $100. Yes, that's what we predicted. And a fee of $15 per month. Yes, we also predicted that. So D is going to be our answer. All right, and then this is another EQAO question. This graph below shows the linear relationship between the total cost of a day at a fair, C, and the number of rides taken, N. So you're given a graph, you're told what the axes mean, and then it says complete the table below with the information about this relationship. So initial value, hopefully everybody is good with a graph now that you find the initial value right on the vertical axis. So here's my vertical axis. Here's the point. Figure out the scale. So that would be at $3. Look for the units. So my initial value is $3. And then it wants the meaning of the initial value. So I'm going to read through this again. The graph below shows the linear relationship between the total cost of a day at a fair and the number of rides taken. So you have to figure out what that $3 could be. And you can make it up as long as it makes sense with the situation. So if you go on no rides, it costs you $3. So that $3 could be for parking. It could be just to get in, just a grounds pass, like just to get in for the day. Okay. You can make it up. And as long as it makes sense with the situation, you'll be fine. So I'm going to pretend it's for parking. I'm going to say it costs $3 to, you can either say to get in to the fair, or you could say it costs $3 for parking, as long as it's something that you would only pay once that makes sense. Okay. Entrance fee, I've seen people write. So the next one's our rate of change. And hopefully we've gotten far enough in this unit now that we know that a rate of change, we have to make a rate triangle. So we can make our rate triangle right on our graph and figure out our rise and our run. Hopefully you should start be getting really comfortable with rise over run. So I can see that my rise, I'm going from 4 to 6, or each one squares worth 1. So I'm going 2. So my rise is $2 because vertically it's in dollars over, this is by ones as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is my run. 4 rides because it's number of rides for my N. Those are the units. And it counts by ones. And then 2 divided by 4 is 0.50. So 0.50 or 50 cents per ride. So that's our rate of change. So we put it in this blank here. So 50 cents per ride. Remember, rate of change has a per with it. When they ask you for the slope, you don't need units, but when they ask you for rate of change, you do need units with it. Okay. And then the units tell you the meaning. So it costs 50 cents for each ride. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is you just need a blank piece of paper, and I'm just gonna show you some equations, and then you guys are gonna call out to me what's in each equation, which one's the slope number or the m, and which one's the b. And I think I've got 10 of them to go through. And I hope by the end of that time, everyone's really good about just looking at equation and being able to figure out what number is the m and what number is the b. So we're gonna do that, and I'm gonna rely on you to participate. So here's our first equation. C equals 5n plus 25. You don't have to write this down. You can if you want to, or you can just watch and participate. So C equals 5n plus 25. Who knows which number is the m? 5 or 25? A little reminder here.
5.
5, good. And what number is the b, the initial value?
25.
Perfect. Okay, here's our next one. A equals 4,000 minus 100t. What number is the m?
100.
Close. The sign is attached to the number, so it's negative 100. But I'm really glad you said the 100 because it's in front of the t. And what number is the b?
4,000.
Yes, very good. Okay, here's our third one. V equals negative 25h plus 240. What number is the m?
Negative 25.
Negative 25, excellent. What number is the b?
24.
240, good. All right, here's one. D equals 5t. What number is the m? So here's my variable. The number in front of the variable is m. So what do you think b is in this case?
0.
0, very good. So there's a plus 0 that you don't see, but you should keep in mind, okay? H equals 3n minus 5. H equals 3n minus 5. What would be m?
3.
3. And what would be the b?
Negative 5.
Negative 5, awesome. So b's can be negative as well, okay? H equals 600 minus 5t. What is the m?
Negative 5.
Yep. And the b?
600.
Yes, very good. Okay, here's a thinker. C cost, think about it that way. Cost equals 75. C equals 75. Idea for the m?
0.
0, very good. I want to just do a little sketch of what this would look like. So say you had C for cost, and there's not even a variable, but we could guess it was like number of something. If cost is always 75, it's like a season's pass maybe. So your cost is $75 no matter how many rides you go on. So your initial value of 75, it just is always 75. And the rate of change is 0 because you don't go up and you don't go down. Okay, that was a tricky one. Good job. Slope was 0 because there's no variable here. It's awesome. Okay, A equals 1,000 minus 50N. What is our rate of change, or M?
Negative
Sorry.
50.
Negative 50, good. And our initial value, B?
1,000.
Yep. 2 more to go. P, profit equals 50N minus 250. What would our initial value, or sorry, what would our M, our rate of change, be? Rate of change?
50.
Yep. And initial value?
Negative 250.
Negative 250. Okay, last one. E equals 0.25S plus 400. What would M be?
0.25.
Yep. And B?
400.
Yes, very good. Okay, so hopefully that helps you just being able to look at an equation and knowing what the M and the B are. So when you're doing your EDSB quiz later this afternoon, if you're given an equation, always write out what your M and your B are when you're reading the answers so you know which one makes sense, because you'll have it right and then the questions will try to, confuse you. But as long as you know which is which, it will help a lot. Okay, I'm gonna exit out of here. Stop presenting and then stop recording.